Hey, it's Naomi Granger here, co-founder and COO of DOPE CFO. And DOPE CFO, we are cannabis education training for accountants. We work with accountants and we help them build highly profitable accounting firms servicing the cannabis niche. And in this process, we get to speak to a lot of accountants and understand what their pain points are and their struggles and why or why not they do not want to get started in cannabis. And more often than not, we hear a lot of these accountants say, oh, I just want to wait for legalization in my state. I'm not really sure about this industry. It seems fickle. It seems like there's a high risk. And so I just wanted to come to you today and talk about some of the recent ballot initiatives so that you can understand that this industry is not going anywhere, that this industry is absolutely stable. And if you have not seen it in the press yet, if you have not been reading your local news, I just wanted to come and make just a few points to help you understand where cannabis is going so that you can make your own prediction as to what's going to happen with the legalization of cannabis in the future. If you are an accountant and you want to get started in this industry, make sure that you listen to this information and you don't sit on the sidelines and wait for this huge opportunity to pass you. This is one of the biggest economic shifts of our lifetime. And there's a tremendous opportunity out there for accountants as well as other professionals to get in and service the cannabis niche because it is a huge industry and it needs everybody from accountants to attorneys to marketing professionals to software developers, you name it, it needs those people. Why legalize cannabis? Currently, we are in a global pandemic. I'm in the state of Nevada and our casinos are still shut down. I have never in my life seen a casino shut down. However, cannabis has been deemed essential and cannabis businesses have been able to keep their doors open in many states during this pandemic. Even though there are many businesses that have closed their doors during this time with these cannabis businesses being able to keep their doors open, many of these businesses have experienced record-breaking sales. And these sales have not gone unnoticed by state governments. With the non-essential businesses being shut down, these businesses are no longer making any revenues, which means state governments are no longer making state tax revenues off of these businesses. A report by FEMA estimates that 40% of businesses will not reopen after a disaster. And of the ones that do reopen, 25% of those will fail within the first year of reopening after a disaster. And then in another report by the Small Business Administration, over 90% of companies that fail within 2 years of being struck by a disaster. If you take a look at some of the recent headlines, the state of New Mexico governor, Michelle Grisham, she says that she regrets that the state legislators were unable to approve cannabis, stating that it was estimated to generate $100 million in state tax revenues. And then if you look at the state of Michigan, the adult use cannabis has sustained sales of over $7 million per week over the last month. And so we're talking between the month of April and May of 2020. And this is even with in-person sales being prohibited. So these are people coming to the curb or delivery sales, and they've been able to maintain over $7 million per week. On March 17th, the New York State Comptroller released a report that stated the state's revenue projections to reflect coronavirus impact, stating that the state expects to see a $4 to $7 billion revenue drop compared to what was expected in the state. So you better believe that these states are looking at the impact of the coronavirus and the impact on their state tax revenue dollars, and they're trying to figure out a way to jumpstart their economy again after this pandemic. Another thing to consider with cannabis are jobs. And so at this point, over 30 million Americans have filed for unemployment. And with the estimated 40% of businesses that will not reopen and 25% of those failing within the first year, a large majority of these people who have filed unemployment will still remain unemployment for years after this pandemic is over. A recent 2020 jobs report by Leafly states that legal cannabis supports 243,000 full-time equivalent jobs, and cannabis continues to be America's single greatest job creation engine, growing at a rate faster than any other industry in the last 4 years. Not only is cannabis going to help with state tax revenues, but it's also going to help with infusing jobs back into this industry. Let's get a little bit into some of the ballot initiatives that we are seeing in some of these states. Because of everything that's going on, we're seeing that a lot of these states want to accelerate the legalization process in their state. And if you are in a state that is not currently legal and you're waiting on the sidelines for them to become legal, then pay attention to this, and also just think outside of the box. If it's not legal in your state, it's going to come soon, or it might come soon in a state near you, and you can always expand your practice into that state. So let's look at New Jersey. New Jersey, the members of the New Jersey State Legislature approved a proposed constitutional amendment on December 19th by a 3/5 majority, firmly placing a question to allow regulated cannabis sales on the November 2020 ballot. According to a recent Mammoth University survey, 61% of respondents said that they would vote in support of the proposal, while 34% said that they would vote against it. The actual question will be, do you approve amending the Constitution to legalize a controlled form of marijuana called cannabis? Only adults at least 20 years of age could use cannabis, and the state commission created to oversee the state's medical cannabis program would also oversee the new personal use cannabis market. Cannabis products would be subject to the state sales tax, and if authorized by the legislator, a municipality may pass a local ordinance to charge a local tax on cannabis products. So that's what's happening in New Jersey. Let's look at Mississippi. A Citizens Drive campaign spearheaded by the Mississippians for Compassionate Care turned over 200,000 signatures to qualify for the ballot in January, allowing patients to access up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis per 14-day time period. Members of the Mississippi State Legislature approved an alternative ballot measure in March that will appear alongside Initiative 65 on the November ballot. Activists view this less clear, more restrictive initiative as an effort of lawmakers to undermine the will of the people and confuse voters at the polls. Under this proposal, patients would be prohibited from smoking whole plant marijuana. In South Dakota, there are two initiatives. We have the Adult Use Constitutional Amendment A. If approved, the constitutional amendment would allow adults to purchase and possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana and grow up to 3 plants for personal use. The initiative is backed by former federal prosecutor as well as the Marijuana Policy Project, a national advocacy organization. And then we also have a medical ballot in South Dakota, Initiative 26, which states, if approved, the statutory initiative would allow registered patients with a physician's approval to purchase and possess up to 3 ounces of marijuana and grow up to 3 plants for therapeutic use. Maine drops residency requirements for recreational marijuana business, eliminating the rule that would have required applicants to have lived in Maine for 4 years. Maine is just opening up their doors. You no longer have to be a Maine resident to open a recreational marijuana business in Maine, inviting out-of-state investors into Maine's projected $180 million a year adult use market. In Missouri, the House passes a bill to eliminate medical cannabis license caps. So the proposal will allow any qualifying business owner to secure a license. Minnesota, the House Majority Leader has introduced an unlikely cannabis legislation proposal that will allow for 8 plant home grows, social use, and the expungement of most cannabis convictions. That's just a couple of the states that currently have something on the ballot or are changing their laws as of late in order to expand the cannabis market in their state. If you're an accountant or you're interested in taking action now, don't let this opportunity pass you by. Contact me directly. If you're watching this somewhere on social media, send me a private message. I check all of my messages. If you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to to our podcast, send us an email. You can email me directly at naomi@dopecfo.com. That's NAOMI @dopecfo.com. We can get on a call and discuss your next steps so that we can ensure you do not let this opportunity pass you by. Stay dope.